Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Yasodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Hare Krishna. This morning we will read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, second canto, chapter 4, the process of creation, text 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī. Vitanvatājasya satīṁ smṛtiṁ hṛdi. Sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ. Swami ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām. Pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī. Vitanvatājasya satīṁ smṛtiṁ hṛdi. Sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ. Swami ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām. Pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī. Vitanvatājasya satīṁ smṛtiṁ hṛdi. Sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ. Swami ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām. Pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī. pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī vitanvatājasya satīm smṛtiṁ ṛṣīṇām sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ Swami ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī vitanvatājasya satīṁ smṛtiṁ hṛdi sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām. Mataji's, please. Pracoditā yena sarasvatī vitanvatājasya satīṁ smṛtiṁ hṛdi sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām. Word for word translation. Pracoditā, inspired. Yena, by whom? Purā, in the beginning of creation. Sarasvatī, the goddess of learning. Vitanvatā, amplified. Ajasya, of Brahmā, the first created living being. Satīṁ smṛtim, potent memory. Hṛdi, in the heart. Sva, in its own. Lakṣaṇā, aiming at. Prādurabhūt, was generated. Kila, as if. Āsyataḥ, from the mouth. Sa, he, may, unto me. ṛṣīṇām, of the teachers. ṛṣabhaḥ, the chief. prasīdatām, be pleased. Translation and purport by Abhayacharanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. May the Lord, who in the beginning of creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. Purport. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord as the super soul of all living beings from Brahma to the insignificant ant, and those all with the required knowledge potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 56/4 or 78% of the full knowledge acquirable, since a living being is constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord. He is unable to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subject to forget everything after a change of body known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it is known as the awakening of knowledge, for it is comparable to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. This awakening of knowledge is under the full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord himself, the empathy. For even Brahma is also subject to this regulation of the Supreme Creator. In the beginning of creation, Brahma is born first without any father and mother, because before Brahma there were no other living beings. Brahma is born from the lotus, which grows from the abdomen of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and therefore is known as Ajya. This Brahma or Ajya is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord. But being the most pious devotee of the Lord, Brahma is inspired by the Lord to create subsequent to the main creation by the Lord through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahma is independent of the Lord. The material scientist can merely observe the reactions of the material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities, as a child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientist is due to a poor fund of knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated within Brahma, and it appears that Brahma distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahma is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually he was inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are called aparuseya, or not imparted by any created being. Before the creation, the Lord was Narayana Paro Vyakta, and therefore the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely prakrita and aprakrita. The physicist can deal only with the prakriti sound, or sound vibrated in the material sky, and therefore we must know that the Vedic sounds recorded in the symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone within the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of the supernatural aprakrita sound, which descend in the chain of disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true import of the Vedic mantras, hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the sources of parampara, as clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized parampara, one should be considered useless, vifala mata, even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancement of arts or science. Sukadeva Goswami is praying from the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Pariksit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is shrotriyam brahmanishtam. I read the verse again. Pracoditā yena purā sarasvatī vitanvatājasya satīṁ smṛtiṁ hṛdi sva-lakṣaṇā prādurabhūt kilāsyataḥ samē ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhaḥ prasīdatām. May the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahmā from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahmā, be pleased with me. Om Jnānatimirandasya Cunanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chichaitanya-manobhistam stapitam yena bhutale svamrupkadamyam dadati svapadantikam. Vandeham shiru shiyuda padakamalam shirum vaishnavamsha. Shirupam jarajatam saganaragnatam vitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadutam parjanasaitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakanalita Shivishakam Vitamsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandho Tyatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vrishabhani Sute Devi Pranamama Priye Pankar Kalptrabhisha Kripa Sindhuvisha Padam Pavanyabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Sarasvatī Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskajai Desatarni Śrīla Prabhupāda ki. So His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj gave also a lecture on this verse, and I heard the lecture, and I will first present the main points he makes before I speak. So this verse, and also the previous verse, Sukadeva Goswami is praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam there is also a prayer, Shanmadhyasyatum vayatitartastate sabrihya svarat tena Brahmā hṛdaya adikavaye muyanti adsurya. That tene Brahmā hṛdaya adikavaye. So the original person, Krishna, has imparted, has given transcendental knowledge to the heart of Brahmā. So what does it mean? It means that it is only by the Lord's mercy that we are able to do something, to do anything. Everyone is factually dependent on the Lord's mercy. Although we are in material nature, and we think, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But no, Krishna says, Prakrtikaya mani guna karmana sarvasa ahankara vimudātma kartamiti manyada. Bhagavad Gita 3:27. That no, everything is done by material nature, and the bewildered soul thinks, I'm doing things. We are bewildered. That bewildering is called ahankar. Ahankar means false ego. Because we are bewildered by this false ego, we think we are the doer. But either through direct or indirect influences, everything is factually done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayapur prakati. He's the superintendent of material nature. But the living entity has a minute freedom to act, and can act either in goodness, in passion, or ignorance. But either we act in goodness, passion, or ignorance, this action will cause a reaction. So when we start spiritual life, we must factually understand the arrangement made here by Maya, illusory energy. So of course in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains the results of karma and how we can become free from karma. Chaknarta karma niroyatra lokayam karma bandhana. That one must please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything happens in this world according to guna and karma. We are the passenger in the car, and we think that we are making the car moving, but we are just the passenger. Ishvara sarvabhutanam ṛṣīṇām tishtati brahmā sarvabhutanam yantarudaya maya. The living entity is traveling in this universe and is just sitting in a vehicle. So we are not moving the body. The living entity is factually under complete control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when we surrender to the Lord, then we become situated on the transcendental platform. But if we are not fully surrendering to the Supreme Lord, we are still under control of material nature. Material nature is controlled by Krishna. So directly or indirectly, we are all under control of Krishna. So Brahma here got this knowledge after a long period of meditation. Interesting is that in the beginning of the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, a living entity is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in proportion of 56/4 or 78% of the full knowledge. So we can never get the full knowledge of the Lord. That's interesting. We know where does it come from, this 50/64. That 64. Lord Krishna has 64 qualities, and he has 4 qualities that no other expansions have. Lord Narayana has 60. And Lord Shiva has 55 qualities, and living entity 50. So 50 to 64 is 7-8%. So we don't have the capacity to understand Krishna completely, only to a certain degree. But what lessons can we learn in practical life from this purport? That whatever knowledge you base your life on, you will be put in that particular mode of nature, according to this knowledge. If you have knowledge in the mode of ignorance, you will be a tamoguni. in the mode of ignorance. If you have knowledge in the mode of passion, then yes, you will be in the mode of passion. Goodness the same. But if your knowledge is transcendental, then you will be transcendentally situated. So the modes of nature are acting upon us. But when one fully realizes one's spiritual, one's transcendental identity as a spirit soul, then one will not be under the modes of nature. One will be transcendentally situated. Therefore, this knowledge in Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very important. Srila Prabhupada in the purport says it comes from aparuseya. It's not from human origin. So it starts by carefully hearing this knowledge, and then carefully understanding it with intelligence. So this will bring you out of the modes of material nature to the transcendental platform. A transcendental platform where life is full of bliss, not miserable. But as long as we are in the modes of nature, we must experience anxieties, suffering. So we must kick out tamoguna, rajoguna, and we must transcend sattvaguna. We must come to the transcendental platform. So do not remain in the modes of material nature. Come to the transcendental platform. That's the message. Because do you know what happens when you are under the modes of nature at the time of death? That we will take birth again in the material world. So we must learn to be situated on the transcendental platform right now. On the transcendental knowledge means taking complete shelter of Krishna. If we take complete shelter of Krishna, we will be deathless. But complete shelter of Krishna means we must follow his instructions. Being transcendental situated means manmana, always thinking of Krishna. And not on the platform of sense gratification. Because spiritual life and sense gratification is, you cannot mix it. Like if you have oil and water and you can stir a lot, but finally you cannot mix it. It will not happen. So trying to mix sense gratification in the modes with bhakti, that Krishna consciousness doesn't work. It's not possible. So we must give up sense gratification before we go back to Godhead. Give up lust. But now Brahmā has gotten this knowledge to the heart. Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita in different places about knowledge, how to get knowledge. He says, sarvāsyam hṛdi vitanvatājasya aparanamsha. For me comes knowledge, forgetfulness, and remembrance, So from the Bhagavatam we learn when there is a new creation, then the Brahmā creates the living beings. And Krishna gives the living beings the knowledge they require to continue their work under the modes of nature which they had finished in the last creation. Same time, every time we take birth, then if we take birth, means we have left our body in a certain material modes. And Krishna gives us the knowledge and to continue that work. He gives knowledge to work in these modes as we desired. So Krishna gives us also this knowledge through material nature. Whatever you know, whatever you remember comes from Krishna. But he gives also to his devotees transcendental knowledge or transcendental realization. Tesham sattata yuktanam bhajtam pritibhuvakam dadami buddhyogam tam yena mamupayanti te. He gives this knowledge he gives this knowledge in the same way he gives this knowledge to Brahmā. Tene Brahmā hṛdaya ādakaveye. He gives this to the heart. In the heart is a spirit soul. And in the spirit soul is a super soul. That Srila Prabhupada writes, this is a purport of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 29. One should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing in association of devotees. That's interesting. So how do we get this transcendental knowledge? Krishna says, priti purvakam, a little love. Then dadami, I give you buddhi yoga. This buddhi yoga means transcendental knowledge with the realization of transcendental knowledge. That's explained in the next verse in Bhagavad Gita. Tesham eva panakampatam amma jnana chamtama nasa chamatma bhavastu. Yeah, bhavastu. Tesham eva panakampatam amma jnana chamtama nasa chamatma bhavastu. Jnana dipena of this. Yeah. So Krishna, from within the heart, he gives us realization of the knowledge, not just the knowledge. The basis of transcendental knowledge is to become attached to Krishna. If you become attached from Krishna, what's the side effect? Yanyat yasavarahyam yansahat ahaitakam. We get the attachment from this world and the realization of this transcendental knowledge. So this is Krishna giving this knowledge from within the heart. Shrimvatas vakatakashna punya shavna kirtana rityata. Yeah, that's Srimvatas vakatakashna punya shavna kirtana rityanta bodha abatrani vidinoti sritsatam. So Krishna gives this knowledge when he sees that we become attracted to hearing about him. So there are different conditions here, and I want to look into them one by one. We have heard first, Krishna gives transcendental knowledge when we serve him with a little love. Krishna gives us knowledge when we become attracted to him. And third is, that is purport here, where Srila Prabhupada says, yes, I give this transcendental knowledge, you get it by when one hears in the association of devotees. Three ways that, but they go together. The point is, pretty purvakam. If our heart is full of anarthas, unwanted things, material desires, attachment to this material world in so many ways, then that little love is not manifested. So that's a problem. We don't have even this little love, and therefore it doesn't happen in the in the degree that our heart really becomes purified. In that, so what's the solution to that? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, tat vinepane partner pariprenasivya upadekshanti technam graninas tatvadakshana. You take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, serve him with humility, you follow his instructions. What does the spiritual master instruct? You chant Hare Krishna, you follow the principles, you hear about me, you hear about Krishna from the Bhagavatam. If we follow these instructions, Krishna accepts it as a little love. And that, because that's very essential. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, there Uddhav is Lord Krishna is explaining Uddhav in first about how to get liberation, the difference between liberated souls, conditioned souls. But then he's going to speak about the Vrajavasis again in the 11th canto, and how to get this Vrajabhakti, this prema, that and what is the answer he gives? To develop this Vraja prema, you cannot get by study of the Vedas, by austerities and so on. He said, no, you can only get it for my pure devotee. So that's the importance there of devotees, to develop that from the pure devotee. So Srila Prabhupada, he gave us this, he gave us this possibility. He said, and he says that also, Prabhupada said that in many occasions, but I remember in particular a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture Srila Prabhupada gave in New Mayapur in France. And there he said, I promise you, if you chant Hare Krishna 16 rounds every day, follow the principles, and perform devotional service, I promise you, you will go back to Godhead. So that's Srila Prabhupada's promise. That so Krishna is bound to follow is bound to make the words of his pure devotee truthful. Like we had in Narada Muni, when he cursed Managriva and Alakuvera, then yes, but he gave them the blessing that they would be saved by Krishna. They would be trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj and get darshan of Krishna. So Krishna had to fulfill that promise. In that way, Srila Prabhupada's words, Krishna will fulfill them. That in a conversation with Allen Ginsberg, there Srila Prabhupada, he mentions that yes, he discusses, he speaks with Allen Ginsberg about the 12th canto and all what's going to happen in Kali Yuga. And it's horrible. And Allen Ginsberg asked Prabhupada, but what with your disciples? And Srila Prabhupada said, my disciples, they will go back to Godhead in this life. So these are Srila Prabhupada's words, that if we become really serious, we can make it in this lifetime. So back to the essence here in the purport, that it's so important that we are situated in this transcendental knowledge. We can get this transcendental knowledge just by performance of devotional service as instructed by the spiritual master. And Krishna will accept it as a little love. And also, we can hear it when we come together every day and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. Because when it's important that we are always situated in this transcendental knowledge. Do not let take away your intelligence. Do not take intelligence from Maya. But we need to take intelligence from Bhagavad Gita, from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the Vaishnavas. This spiritual knowledge, if we realize it, it's never lost. And we see examples from the Bhagavatam. We see the examples of Jad Bharat, Bharat Maharaj's third birth, that he never lost the realization. Even when he was in the body of a deer, he remembered his previous lives and everything what happened. He did not lose his realization. Narada Muni, he remembered his previous lives. And but we have also examples from those who get knowledge from Maya. And that's the whole story in the 4th canto of King Puranjan. Puranjan became Puranjani. He became a woman. So that happens when we remain situated and take knowledge from Maya. But if we hear the Bhagavatam every day, as instructed by Prabhupada, and discuss it in association with devotees, then gradually we will become situated in Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha Jnana. This is required. Unless we come to Sambandha Jnana, and Haridas Thakur says that in Harinam Chintamani, that if you want to come to the Nama Bas chanting, the Nama Bas chanting is where the chanting is going to remove your anarthas. It's a level of anartha nivritti. You can only come to that stage when you are correctly situated in Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha Jnana means knowing who Krishna is. Today we learned we can know who Krishna is till 78%. But we need to know who Krishna is, otherwise we cannot understand our own position as a servant of Krishna. And we cannot understand our relationship. Our relationship is devotional service. That this knowledge, being transcendentally situated through this knowledge, is essential. Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness means following the dictations of the super soul within. Interesting. Every moment you do something, or you want to do something, do we think, would Krishna want me to do? Does Krishna want me to do this? That's Prahlāda Maharaj, he told me that he asked Srila Prabhupada, how do we know what Krishna wants me to do? What does he want me to do? How do I know it? And Prabhupada looked upon me with compassion and said, you will do the wrong thing. Interesting. But of course, yes, we will do the wrong thing if we forget Krishna and Krishna's instructions. That if we know Krishna's instructions from the Bhagavatam, from the Bhagavad Gita, then we think before, oh, does my spiritual master wants me to do that? Does Krishna wants me to do that? That's always the question before we do something. So that is acting in Krishna consciousness, acting for the pleasure of Krishna, being situated in its Sambandha Jnana. And how can we be situated correctly in this Sambandha Jnana? It starts with hearing, especially the Bhagavatam. Therefore this hearing process is so important. We chant, but we must also hear. Because if we are not hearing, we are not properly situated in this Sambandha Jnana, and then we cannot overcome the 10 offenses against the holy name. Because these 10 offenses are a result of not understanding who Krishna is a result of not understanding who we are. Therefore we make offenses to devotees. When we do not follow the instructions of the spiritual master, that's go avahya. If we don't know who Krishna is and not understand that the holy name is Krishna, then we make offenses against the holy name. So that's going together, these 2 points, that always situated in this transcendental knowledge, and that will protect us and help us to develop our Krishna consciousness and take full shelter of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. There's any comments, corrections?
Hare Krishna. It's working. If we can only receive this transcendental sound through disciplic succession from a bona fide spiritual master, does that apply also to the chanting of the holy name of the Maha Mantra? And if so, then when we go out on street Sankirtan and chant to just the people in general, how is it benefiting them if they're not initiated?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, if we chant a holy name, that the holy name must be received from a bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession to get the full benefit of the holy name. But that does not mean that others cannot get any benefit from it. But unless we are connected with the Guru Parampara, that the cleansing of the heart, the cleansing of the heart will not take place unless we take shelter of the spiritual master and serve him with submission. That it's also explained in Madhurya Kanambini that it's because if we Madhurya Kanambini speaks about the effects in different stages of devotional service and how it eradicates the reactions from our sinful activities, pious activities, the reactions of our offenses, seva-parat and nama-parat is the most. And there it's mentioned that if one chanting bhajana kriya is before anartha nivritti, it has also an effect, but minimal, like 1 or 2 anarthas of the thousands anarthas we have had will be removed. So by that we can understand that the holy name acts according to our purity and surrender. And that's many times a problem for us also, because we are in anartha nivritti. Because we are in anartha, we have these anarthas, we cannot chant a pure name. It's like a vicious circle. But how to get out of it? It's by the mercy of the spiritual master. And that's the point. But that does not mean if we chant the holy name of the Lord, it's still Krishna, and Krishna is independent. That he can give some mercy if he sees in the heart of those who hear. And Krishna is all attractive. If people become attracted to the holy name, then that will put them on the path, and they start chanting, and finally, sadhu sangha, they will associate with devotees, then bhajana kriya, and they go to the process. And that's what I could say on it. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Related to that, we meet people sometimes that have been in ISKCON for years, maybe 10 years or longer, and they follow the same process as everyone else. They chant rounds and they go to programs, but they never get initiated. They always say, like, I just can't find a guru. We've read in Nectar of Devotion that the first principle in devotional service is to find a guru. So what is it that holds somebody back from making that step and finding a spiritual master and getting initiated, even if they're chanting for a long time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Lord Chaitanya says, Brahmana Brahmati Konya Bhagavan Jiva, Gaur Krishna Prasad, Bhakti Lata Beach. So, if someone, after going up and down in this material universe, that by the mercy of Krishna, Krishna will bring that person in contact with a bona fide guru, and he will give the seed of bhakti. So, how long that process takes, it depends on Krishna. He brings one in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. But there is another point here, and that's also the desire of the aspirant, of wanting to be initiated, wanting to take shelter. That Krishna reciprocates also with that. But then it depends on the mercy of the Lord. I remember when I took shelter of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, then he accepted me as his disciple, but then I was a brahmachari in the temple. I got recommendation, that was 96, and I was sent to Zurich with recommendation, and Bhakti Charu Maharaj would give initiation. I wanted to take shelter of him, wanted initiation. But then Bhakti Charu Maharaj said, because of the problems with Harikesh at that time, next 2 years I will not give initiations. So I couldn't get initiated. That means it doesn't depend only on us, it depends on Krishna. When he feels you are right, the right moment is there, you will get initiated. So that, but yeah, it depends also on the desire of the person. Does he really want to go that and Krishna reciprocates with that. So there are many factors. I've mentioned a few, but probably there are much more that, and Krishna is in the heart of everyone, and he arranges things. Why things happen sometimes, difficult to understand for us, but he knows. That's what I could say. Very good. Well, maybe a last question. Last question.
Okay. Maharaj, just expanding on this question.
Yeah.
What makes one not take a guru then? Like you said that there are it's on Krishna's will that we'll get a guru. But what makes us not desire to get a guru? Like, can you explain on that aspect, that why am I not wanting to take a guru?
Well, I just tell you about my own experience. I came in contact with this movement at the end of the 80s. I was in Belgium. At that time, just Bhagavan left. Everyone was in a big crisis there. And many were leaving the movement here. It was a big crisis. And And in the 80s, so many gurus fell down that I met devotees. Yes, I got already 3 times initiation, and still the guru fell down. That was a big crisis. So I was thinking, I will not so quickly take initiation. I said, forget it. I may wait 10 years. But then I met Bhakti Charumaj. And Bhakti Charumaj, he told me that, he told me personally, when I asked him, he said, I'm not a spiritual master, he said. I can only connect you with Prabhupada. And then he was instructing all those who wanted to take shelter from him. He gave them instructions. And one of the instructions was, you take shelter of everyone who is more advanced than you. That first you take shelter of Prabhupada and never leave this movement. These are instructions he gave to many disciples. And based on that, I had the freedom to receive instructions, siksha, from many other senior devotees, Prabhupada disciples, which I did. That I took shelter of them, and also of Bhakti Charumaj, of course. But yeah, that he won my heart with that, and that. But otherwise, I think it was a good reason to wait for a long time, seeing what happened. But that's the history of ISKCON. And last decades, it's going much, much better. By Krishna's mercy. It was a difficult period. Thank you. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ke, Srila Prabhupada ke jai. Srila Prabhupada ke jai.